Hello and welcome for the love of food. This is my first YouTube live, so hopefully we get this right for you. All right, what are we talking about today? We're going to talk about a way to make your beautiful summer basil last all winter long. I'm going to show you how I make it right now in this live. If this works out well, we'll do a whole bunch more lives that we are hoping will help you become a little bit more confident in some of the cooking techniques that you use, or maybe give you some ideas that you hadn't thought of. It's all about you. It's not about us. So we want to show you and help you do whatever it is that you want to accomplish. All right. So we really appreciate. By the way, we only have 4 more subscribers to go to hit our first goal of 500. I'm so excited about that. All right. You have been amazing. If you're watching this, likely you have already subscribed. If not, make sure you hit the subscribe button below. Don't wait. Let's go ahead and get this started. All right. So I'm try not to make this long and drawn out. So I've completed some of the steps ahead of time to kind of show you how things are going to look as we go. And then I'm actually going to make it. So starting with the basil. All right, this is my summer basil that I grew. I am so sad when it's time to take it away. And what I do is if I'm not ready to make the basil salt that day, I simply put it into a little vase with some water and it stays nice. So we don't have to worry about it. We can use it as we go, just like fresh flowers. It'll last for a few days in this vase right on your counter. And by the way, it makes your house smell beautiful. All right, so what do we do with this basil? Well, let me just take a piece off and kind of give you some kind of an idea of what I do. Let's see if I can just cut a piece off here. I'm just going to, so I don't wreck what I've got in there. All right, so I'm going to take one little piece and just move this out of the way for a second. And I'm going to try and point my screen down onto my cutting board. Hopefully that's not too dark for you to be able to see. All right. So what I've done is I've already got some that is kind of ready to go and waiting to be chopped. But I want to show you the real easy way to strip herbs from their stem is to simply grab and pull, right? If this had been a whole bunch of leaves, it just would have pulled right off. And then you were going to discard that piece. All right. Next, we want to chop this all up. Now, I've already pre-washed and let mine dry in the vase, so that's really important for you to know. Pre-wash your basil and let it sit right into this vase here so that it has a chance to dry, because we don't want to work with wet basil. Wet basil will not work for this. Your basil needs to be nice and dry. All right, so to cut my basil, I'm going to try and roll it all up like a big cigar and just come in and just cut down like this. All right. I'm going to be putting this in the food processor. So you're asking yourself now, why did she cut it? Well, for this recipe, we need 1/3 to 1/2 cup. And so I'm going to be able to make sure that I have the right amount. If I left it whole, who knows? My guess is that 1/3 or 1/2 cup is about a handful, but my handful might be different than your handful. So let's go ahead and show you what we're going to do next with this. You do have to have a food processor. So if you have like a little mini food processor, that's great. That's my favorite way to do this. So this recipe calls for basil and salt. That is it. This is basil salt in its pure form. How do I use this? Well, I've put it over tomatoes. I've put it in any dish, any Italian dish, or even in salads. It's amazing. I have given this to some friends at Christmas time, and they really enjoy this and use it all year long. So if you're one of those people and you are using my basil salt and you're on now, you can go ahead and just tell us how you're using it. I'd be curious to know. If not, I know I'm doing this live at a very awkward time for the reason that this is my first one. So I'm trying not to do it at a time when I know, like on a Sunday when you're all logged on. But anyway, if you are logged on, We'd love to hear from you. Go ahead and throw a love up in the chat, or simply tell us your name, or do anything that makes it feel interactive for you as well. We'd love to hear from you. If you've ever made this or you have a different way of doing it, I'm open to all of that. My way isn't always just the right way. There's a million ways to get to the end result. But I'm going to show you the one that I find that I think is the easiest. Let's get this basil that I chopped up into my food processor. Oh, and by the way, I should tell you, you don't want to, if you can help it, you don't want to use leaves that have a lot of brown spot on them. Stay away from anything that looks icky or dried up, like this one. This is not a good leaf to use. All right. You're going to want to stay away from those. That's already kind of past its prime, and that will not give us a good result. All right. The nicer, the greener, the fresher, the better your basil salt's going to be. Let's go ahead and pour the salt right into the processor. And I want to make sure that you can see this whole process. And I'm going to give it a until it looks like it's all mixed. And by the way, it already smells so good. I'll let you kind of take a look at, see how pretty it is? All right. Next, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you, I've already had one in the oven for 10 minutes. So what I like to use for my oven, the temperature is 220 degrees. And what I use, I'm going to show you behind me, is my air fryer convection oven. So you can use any oven for this, but there's a couple of things you need to know. This was on 220 for 10 minutes. At the end of 10 minutes, let me point this down so you can kind of see. This is what it looks like. I'm going to just go ahead and get my spatula and show you. Now, you're going to think, oh, that's good, it's done. But no, look, see, it's all stuck, and like it has to be broken up. See these big chunks? Look, that tells me that's not dry all the way yet because it's clumping together. Well, and that's because this needs another 10 minutes. So let's go ahead and break this one up. And we're going to get that back in for the 10 minutes time. And really, you're just going in, as you can see, I'm just kind of, any way I can, just kind of making sure that this is broken up. Smaller, the finer, the better. I can't even tell you right now how nice my house smells. Between making this and having the fresh basil that's been sitting in my vase for a day or two, it's been amazing. All right, so I got this broken back up. I'm going to pop it back into the oven for the same 220 degrees for 10 more minutes. On bake, not on convection, just on bake. Mine automatically goes to convection, but it's just on bake. And that way you don't have to worry about, you don't need to be air frying. You don't need to be doing anything else. So while we're waiting for that, let me show you one of my finished products, that the very first one that I did. This was last year. And I'm going to show you kind of what this looks like, so you can kind of get an idea. See, it's beautiful. It's flaky. I'm just going to pick some up, drop it onto a little paper towel so you can kind of get the idea. It's beautiful. It's flaky, and I'm going to give it a taste. It's wonderful, and it's held its flavor. So this would be considered more of a finishing salt than it would be something that you would put in the beginning of a recipe. But while we're waiting for the batch we made today to go ahead and heat up, let me just show you what I would do with our first batch. So you need to make sure that you're using a parchment paper. If you noticed when I took my first batch out of my oven, I had parchment paper lined. If you try and make this without the parchment paper on the bottom of the tray, it's just going to stick, it's going to burn, it's going to be a big mess. So make sure that you're lining your tray with parchment. This is the one that we just mixed together. And what I'll be doing is I'll be laying that out onto my tray once this one is done. So a clean piece of parchment for your second batch. Really simple, right? Okay. So while we're waiting, what are we going to talk about? Well, let's talk about fresh herbs. And let's talk about one of the reasons why I really love this. If you think about it, you can grow basil. Anybody can grow basil. If I can do it, you can do it. You can grow it in a pot. You can grow it in your backyard. You can grow it anywhere. I don't care if you live in an apartment. You can put it in a window. I used to know an older Italian lady who grew hers in the window and used it for her pasta sauce. So there's lots of ways that you can do this. I don't start from seed. I just go to the supermarket. I buy one of those already rooted basil plants. You know the ones I'm talking about. You see them in the produce section of the supermarkets, and they have that big plastic bag that goes around the little vase. I buy that and start with that every year, no matter where I'm going to plant it. Those are the ones I like to use. They already are healthy. They already have a good start to them. They're only going to last 1 year. Basil does not come back every year, so you have to use it up. That's one of the reasons why finding ways to use up your summer basil makes sense. A lot of people will make pesto. I've made pesto. I have a ton of it in my freezer, and that's another nice way to use it, but you can only eat so much pesto. What I love about doing this is it keeps all winter. It lasts into the following year. It makes a lovely gift if you want to take and put them into maybe little mason jars, or any kind of little spice jars. You can use some leftover spice jars that that you've emptied out already, and just clean them really well and dry them really well, and then fill them up. I did some that I wrapped little pieces of Christmas cloth around them and some twine, and they looked beautiful. If I think about it, I will post them up here so you guys can see. And the other reason why I like this is that it's economical. Have you been to the spice aisle in the store? Have you looked at what spices cost? It's outrageous. They are $8 and $10 for some spices. So I can get a big thing of sea salt, and that's what this salt was, by the way. This is my sea salt jar. So I like to buy my sea salt when I find it, one that I like. I find it organic, find it in bulk, and then I just store it and use it when I'm ready. One of the things that we've also done, aside from the basil, is that we've also made other flavors, and I'll get to that in a minute. So what does this cost to make? The plant. Let's talk about that. I buy the plant on sale for $2.99, the one in the plastic bag from the grocery store. I buy the salt, a box of it, for about $1.99, sometimes $2.99, just depending on where I can find it, where I can source it from. And then how much does it make? Well, you saw that I only used a cup of salt and about a half a cup of basil to make one batch. You saw the size of that batch. That's more than I'm ever going to use in a year. So I already have some to give away. I'm going to make a second batch, so you can best be sure that you're going to see this come up in some kind of Christmas post later, that I've given some of these away as gifts. So really the cost for me to do this is minimal. The flavor is amazing, and it really just elevates your dishes that you put this into. Okay, enough about that. What I want to tell you is this can be done with any herb, not just basil. We're doing basil and we're focused on basil today, but I make celery salt. You know the little leaves off the top of the celery that you don't know what to do with and you just throw the tops away? Save those. I make a celery salt that is so similar to this. And let me see if I have some in my drawer to show you. Amazing. This is also fantastic. All right. I'm going to take a quick peek and see how our basil salt is looking here after the second 10 minutes. What we want to make sure is that it doesn't get brown looking. We like it to kind of hold some of that beautiful shape, but we want to dry it out. So let's take a look here and see what we've got. It's looking pretty good, smelling pretty good. Oh, see how nicely that moves around? It's not clumped up at all. All right, I could leave this in for the other 10 minutes, or the other 5 minutes, I should say. But let me show you a little trick that I've learned. I'm going to set it aside for a minute. And what I'm going to do is make some room here. Let's see. While I'm setting it aside, basically what I'm doing is I'm letting it cool off just a little bit. And yes, we want to make sure that it's good and dry. So while that's cooling, let's get our second batch ready to go. We'll use that same pan, clean piece of parchment. I'll turn you around here so you can see what I'm doing. Here's that batch we mixed together that's still very wet. Let me get this one out. We're going to spread this out. And get that one ready to go into the oven. All right. Let's compare the color. So I don't know if you can see this really well, but once you do cook it, it changes into just a little, this is the cooked one. It changes into just a little bit of a lighter green than this vibrant green that we start with. So see? All right. Now, I'm going to let this one sit and cool for just a minute more. I'm going to put this one aside because I want to show you something. And you can try it this way if you like. Once I know that it's cool enough to handle, I can bring it back into my jar, my food processor. And let's go ahead and just all right, this is the one that we've cooked already. It's been cooked for a total of 15 minutes. And it's quite chunky. See, I'm going to see if I can kind of get that angled so you can look at it. It's kind of got these really big chunks. I can process this down just a little bit further and then put it back in to dry. Why do I want to do that? Well, the smaller pieces, like I have now, will dry faster and better. So I can now put these back in my pan. This is my little trick for the last 5 minutes. And then I will ensure a nice dry product, because what you don't want when you're making any kind of salt is you don't want it to crystallize and form into clumps. Have you ever gone to a restaurant that had outdoor seating in the summer and you try to shake the salt shaker and it doesn't come out because it's all clumped up? And because humidity got in there, right? Moisture got in there. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that our salt is good and dry before we put it into any kind of storage. All right, I'm going to bring over my pan. I'm going to pour my salt back onto its original parchment paper. And I'll give you a look at it before we put it back in. So here's my salt now. I'm going to spread it all out again so that it will dry out easily. And I'm going to pop it back in for that last 5 minutes. Same temperature, 220 degrees on bake. Now just for 5 minutes, because we don't want this to go over. And now we've got it back in and cooking. That's pretty much it. That's basil salt. When you go to pour it in a jar, use a funnel. Easy peasy. All right. Thanks for watching my first live. This was about 20 minutes long. That's about how long it takes to make this. So I think you all should give it a try. If you don't have any summer basil left, go buy one of those plants in the store. Give this a try. Think you're going to love it. Put it on, as I said, any Italian dish, any fresh salad, anything with a tomato sauce. It's simply amazing. And I really appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching. For the love of food.